How's it going, everybody? It's Ryan here, going to talk to you about 8 myths that I used to believe in training, stuff about shoulders and knees and carbs and fat, and basically all the things that I first learned, or I should say maybe misinterpreted, because a lot of the time the information we get isn't necessarily wrong. It's just that it's sort of out of context or doesn't belong in the right context, if that makes any sense. But it's an article that I wrote. The text version will be up soon. And if you'd like to continue the discussion, please feel free to leave a comment or maybe just share an experience, because I think I'm sure you've heard some of these things or seen some of the ads I will talk about. And enjoy the video. Number 1, benching past 90 degrees is bad for your shoulder, or it's just bad in general. Back when I was green as I could be, I was at 24 Hour Fitness University. My instructors were a chiropractor by the name of Dr. Meyer and strength and conditioning coach Chuck Fields and another instructor named Nagoya. These instructors had such a huge impact on my fitness education. Essentially, everything I learned in that 5-day course in San Ramon back in 2001 was my first exposure to technique and form. I was highly impressionable. It was my mistake to think that everything they said was 100% true, black and white. Looking back, remembering the experience, there's a good chance that I misinterpreted bits and pieces of what they said. Keep in mind that I was coming from a background of almost zero formal education. I didn't really play any sports, let alone any high-level sport of anything. All that I knew was that I read Muscle and Fitness magazine, read hydroxycut research articles that I thought were, in fact, I thought they were research articles. They weren't. They were ads. Lee Priest in a lab coat. Seriously. For those of you that don't know, Lee Priest is a popular Olympia underdog, a very short bodybuilder with Popeye-sized forearms. Number 2, knees going past toes or only going to 90 degrees. This was something that was taught to me about lunges and leg press. I was never really taught how to squat. We were taught very simple rules for where your feet and knees should be. They briefly touch on adduction, abduction, internal rotation, flexion, extension, eversion, inversion, but only really to memorize. Much of what all personal training certifications try to do is essentially have an abridged version of a college course. Saying that the knees going past your toes or only squatting to a 90 degrees of the knees is analogous to saying basketball is very dangerous. It depends on the person. And as you learn more in training and as you watch more videos and you learn more about yourself in training, you begin to realize that this is a lot more complicated. There is no real black and white. Number 3, fat makes you fat. The problem without having formal education in science is that it causes many of us to make assumptions about what appears to be obvious. If you stop eating fat, you won't get fat. This is an example of almost sound logic, depending on who you talk to. If you are to say that the truth about fat is that indeed it makes you fat, then it makes sense that if you eat a bunch of low-fat foods, you won't get fat. I mean, after all, Coca-Cola has 0 grams of fat. Number 4, carbs make you fat. When Atkins was all the rage, carbs became the new evil. Everything was about ketosis. These days, we say ketogenic. When you're in ketosis, you're burning a ton of fat. When it was first introduced, it was so radical. It's the opposite of what we used to believe. It came at a perfect time to get people to try it. And you know what happened? It actually worked. Too bad most of the rapid weight loss was due to water loss. Number 5, overhead presses cause shoulder impingement. If you give a green personal trainer enough information, but not all of it, you can encourage a lot of bad paradigms for exercise science. This is one of those rules that's similar to what I said about bench pressing your elbows only to 90 degrees and knees going past your toes. It depends on who. Number 6, shoulders depressed. Depress your shoulders or pull them back and down. That's a fitness mistake or a fitness myth, if you want to call it. I really used to advocate bringing the shoulders back and down. I taught it to a point of overcorrection. There is such a thing as doing too much of a good thing. And what makes this good thing bad is in constantly doing during certain movements, like trying to retract your shoulder blades and keep them down during a lat pull down, for example, you can encourage bad motor patterns that lead to more shoulder problems. I mean, yes, you want to pull your shoulder blades back and down and you want to activate your lats, but I mean, if you encourage that movement too much, too often, and the wrong movements, it will lead to bad patterns, which will cause problems. Number 7, you should always squat ass to grass or to parallel. When I first made a commitment to start posting on YouTube a little over a year ago, I wanted to make sure that I didn't get called out on depth. Although hitting proper depth in squats is important, how you get there matters more. An example of this is that a lot of my female clients can squat ATG, but have to compromise their spine, collapse their arches, their feet adduct their knees, and overextend their spine, or go into posterior tilt to get there. It's okay to do it with no load or light loads, but for a few reps, but not in high volume squatting or heavy squatting. Number 8, you can get shredded in 12 weeks. The Xenadrin, Hydroxycut ads, as well as many others, made you believe that you can take their supplements and you'd look like a stage competitor or close. I later learned that after watching Bigger, Faster, Stronger documentary that a lot of it is smoke and mirrors. Not to mention airbrush, Photoshop, and lighting. I'm not against accomplishing amazing results, but time frames to accomplish these goals are not always worth the sacrifice. And just realizing that to get shredded, I mean, come on, to have a six-pack and jack chest and shoulders and arms and legs, I mean, that doesn't happen overnight. I mean, if you're coming from no training, you're just not going to happen. You actually have to have a training base. You got to have muscle on your body so that way you can like shred some fat and then you'll have muscle to show. And that's something I didn't really understand when I was 16. So anyways, those are the 8 myths that I used to believe. Now they have all an entirely different context. If you do have a question about anything that I talked about, please feel free to leave a comment. We can continue the discussion because these are things that are not really black and white. They tend to be black and white for maybe 70 to 80% of the population. It just kind of depends on the person's goals, and a lot of past experience when it comes to injury and that kind of sort of thing. So I hope you enjoyed my video. Click like if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys in the next video.